cork. When we serve you the cork at a restaurant, basically you're seeing if any wine has crept up the sides of the cork to make sure that the wine isn't bad. When you see the wine all the way up the side of the cork, that means that the cork has been dried out and that oxygen has gotten to the wine. So when that happens, you have a lot better chance of having a defective wine or a bad wine. Don't smell the cork. It's gonna
so they give it to you so you can see that the wine has been stored properly.
Absolutely.
Because isn't there a term called corked?
Yes, correct.
I mean, you're talking, I was watching on YouTube people who were, they were talking to a sommelier about uncorking a $1,500 bottle of wine, and the patron sat there and said, "This is corked."
It's one of those things
What's
in the
that
industry.
mean?
They're corked.
Corked means
corked
spoiled?
is a is a very, very out there term that will basically say the wine is bad. There is a chemical agent called TCA. The name of that is really, really long, so I'm not going to get into that. But when TCA happens, it creates a spoiled wine, and it smells like dirty Band-Aids, old basements, and that's what you don't want to have. But in the industry, there is a statistic out there saying 1 in every 10 wines under cork is bad. So that's when we get into the screw top, which is basically there to stop that.
So when they pour a glass of wine, if they give us the cork, we're not going to smell it.
No,
that's a faux pas.
you're just looking at it to see.
But then they pour a little in the glass,
absolutely.
then we do
basically
what?
You're smelling the wine right there to the second detection.
Do you swirl?
Absolutely, you swirl.
Give it a little aeration.
And then you're going to smell what you've swirled. When you swirl it, you're creating a larger chemical reaction that wasn't there before, and you're smelling those vapors.
And I see these people sticking their nose like halfway down.
Do it. Get your nose into the glass. I mean, there's a bunch of nuance, but why do you smell a wine? Well, that's because you will pick up only 5 senses on your palate when you taste: sweet, sour, dry, whatever. Whereas you can smell almost 10,000 different nuances. So that's why you smell a wine before you taste it. If you've ever eaten a meal or been sick without your sense of smell, it's very bland, and that's what happens with wine. So that's why you smell wine before you drink it. But also, when going back to the service side, when you smell it, you're now your second indication of corkage or cork taint. If it smells bad, it's probably bad. I mean, if it looks like a duck, sounds like a duck, it probably is. Well, your first indication is the cork. You see wine going up the side. Was it very brittle? That shows that maybe oxygen got to it. If it smells like it, then it probably is corked. So that's basically what the server is doing. It's just putting the ball in your court to see if you know what you're talking about. Because in a restaurant, there are some ethical issues with serving corked wine if people don't know what it is. One of those things, if I spend $1,500 on a bottle and it's corked, is it my fault?
Or even $30
well,
a bottle.
I mean,
that's more reasonable.
Is it my fault then, or is it the service fault? Then it becomes this big battle of, do we send back the wine? Do you not? It's a whole other conversation.
And I understood where if you do have a sommelier at the restaurant, that ultimately it's their decision.
Absolutely.
The patron can say this is corked.
It's their responsibility.
The sommelier is going to say, no, that is not a corked wine.
That's very true.
That is not spoiled. That isn't a good wine. But then, of course, you have the patron who's wanting something different.
Who's right? The customer is always right. No matter if you know they're completely wrong, if you want those customers back in your restaurant buying something again, you have to give it.
So the chef and the waiters and everybody are enjoying a very expensive bottle of wine.
Absolutely. if they're wrong, hey, you know what? There's something.
Staff are going, yoo-hoo!
Whoop-de-doo. One of those
things. I can't let you out of here, Chad. And we're going to have to close here in a little
Okay.
bit, but I have people wanting to know, what your recommendations, and I hope it's okay for you to name drop.
Absolutely.
Just give a couple recommendations in, couple different price ranges of wine.
Okay. Well, for everyday consumption, I love Sean Miner's wines. Sean was actually born in Manhattan and raised in Kansas City, Kansas here. He's been in the industry for a long, long time. He just makes absolutely great product for the price.
Which is about what?
Anything from $10 to $15.
Very reasonable.
Everyday kind of wines that drink way, way, way above where they're supposed to be.
In all categories.
In all categories.
In
whites, reds, Cabernet Sauvignon, Pinot Noir, Sauvignon Blanc, Chardonnay, Merlot even. If you get into that $20 price point, some bigger wines that I like, there's one wine called Mount Eden Estate Cabernet. This wine is one of the icons of the industry. Been around in an area south of San Francisco. It's not in Napa, it's in the Santa Cruz Mountains, but you're getting more for your money than I think any other wine on the market. There's a company out of California and Oregon called Evening Land for Pinot Noir. Evening Land is probably the most ambitious project run by both sommeliers and winemakers to make sure that the wines are both food friendly and incredible together. If you get, let's 30 to 50 plus, There's a few brands that I always go with. Pay, P-E-A-Y, one of the best, hardest to get Pinot Noir, Syrah, Chardonnay producers in the New World. I love, love, love Burgundy, which is in the eastern part of France that does Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. They're a little bit more expensive, as they should be, just because the land is more expensive. But any kind of Burgundy in that $30 to $50 price point, with a vintage of 2009, a little bit warmer vintage, a little bit more approachable. If you get into that $100 plus, there's a guy by the name of Tor Kenward. His wines are absolutely epic. And another brand called Blackbird. Just very, very hard to find, but just amazing, amazing wines for the price.
Boy, we've got a lot of stuff, like I said,
I
that our listeners are going to want to replay, and I think they're going to have their notepads out. Thanks so much, Chad. This has been one of the most fascinating interviews I think I've done in a while, and just how appropriate for the new year. Ring in the new year with a little cheer. You've been here listening with Joan and the Joan Jerkovich Show, and again, be sure to go to joanjerkovich.com for the video outtakes and links to iTunes and my blog. Thanks for joining us today for innovative talk radio that surprises, entertains, and sometimes even informs you, and certainly tells you about good wines and different price ranges. This is the Joan Jerkovich Show, 9 a.m. Saturdays and Sundays on 910 KINA Salina. We'll adjust again the next one. That's fine. No, I'm telling you, I did not want you to stop talking, because I'm telling you, we're going to promo this, and we're going to have people that are going to really want to hear even your recommendations.
Absolutely.
Because that's one of the things for all of us out there, even wanting to buy a good bottle of wine, we don't have the opportunity to taste.
Yeah, I agree. That's one of the things.
Has being in the distributor side given you more opportunity for that, or has a lot of this
I'm
been
around wine all day long.
Something that you've had to even personally kind of?
It's both.
Because your distributors are only going to be distributing certain
wines, and that's we
so you want to get out. You obviously have a very broad range.
That's very true. I will say we've done an amazing job of bringing in the best of the best, and I distribute only really small brands that are handmade, organically farmed, stuff like that, that are pretty expensive. But when you taste the real stuff and what it's supposed to be like, I mean, your mind will be changed on how everything is supposed to be.
It's worth the price.
It is absolutely worth the price.
But then again, if someone like you who've done all the tasting and have the palate for it can advise, do you do a blog? Do you do any blogging?
I don't. I've thought about it. My wife and I started a blog, and we just hadn't really kept up with it. One of the things for educational that we do a ton of tastings around. I mean, we get with restaurants and say, hey, let's do this or let's do that. Because again, raising the education level is really what's going to change the drinking prowess of America. I mean, right now we're on the verge of a paradigm shift of drinking the big houses versus knowing what you're drinking and finding the cool stuff that is going to drink way past where it's at. And we're right on that cusp of becoming a wine savvy nation, and that's what's really cool to see what's changing.
And a lot of young people getting
Absolutely.
into this as a real profession.
It is a grassroots type change that is really changing and taking over the country. And when you talk to Griff about it, I mean, you'll see that on the spirit side too. People are becoming more educated and wanting to know more about what they're doing instead of just, oh, there's red wine in my glass, thanks. But hey, what's this all about? Where is it from?
So how about that? When you go in, oftentimes, especially if you're on a budget, you're going, okay, I'll just have the house wine. Nah.
There's always
is that more of an economic decision by a restaurant than really a food and wine pairing?
Actually, restaurants are making more money off of the house wines than they are a lot of their other stuff. So they're actually daring you, the customer, to buy the house wine.
I think it's a little less expensive.
But when you look at cost structures and everything, the house wine.
Does that come out of a big jug somewhere in the back usually?
You never know. House wines are meant to be inexpensive and meant to be quaffed with a meal. No, that's fine. But I mean, if you want to elevate your meal experience, don't buy the house wines.
We've all had our share of box wine.
Exactly.
I bet I'm going to see some at the Christmas party.
Now, I will say box wine is changing too. There are alternative packages called Tetra Paks and smaller formats of 5 liters. Actually, people are putting good juice into because of transportation issues, because of how cheap it is now to send out 12 liters of wine versus 9, or 15 liters versus 6, something along those lines.
So do you have a box wine you recommend?
Absolutely. There's a little company called Y&B, or Yellow and Blue is the company. So we all know Yellow and Blue make
that's
green.
easy to remember.
So it's all organic, hand-harvested fruit that in recycled containers. Little Tetra Paks, they're in liters, but what makes it cool is their carbon footprint's about 85% less than glass production.
Oh.
So I mean, and it's so good on the environment, as well as being really good wine. It's just, if you go to Europe, try to buy a gallon of milk or some orange juice in anything but a Tetra Pak, and you're not going to find it. There's no glass, there's no plastic, it's all recyclables. And that's really what the wine industry is even shifting to because of that. It's a lot easier to ship. You get 33% more for the same size package. So then on a pallet, you get more. It's better to stack. Easy stuff like that.
Right. Glad to hear that. They're looking at the environment as well.
For sure.
You know,
that's a huge thing now is giving back to the environment what gave them to them.
Right. Listen, Chad, we're going to have you stay in touch. You've got my email, and be sure too that if something new comes up in the industry that you're really excited about, you know, we'll have you back.
No problem.
I have a feeling we're going to have people requesting you.
I do a ton of tastings here in Salina as well, through
absolutely.
the public library and the class series. We do probably.
Oh, I bet that sells out.
Oh, it sells out within an hour.
I was going to say that's hard to get in.
It's
that's
really,
the problem with
we have to find a bigger venue because I mean
yeah.
they'll sell out within an hour that they release it, which is really
and people
cool.
are watching for it.
Absolutely, that's the cool thing is now they're getting involved with their community and that's what I want to do is just get people out and doing something different. So.
Well, and that's one thing. The library might be a place I'll have to remember to make sure they know, and if they have a way to get out to their email people to listen to your shows.
For sure.
Okay.
Cool.
Well, thank
Joan,
you
I
so
appreciate
much.
it.